us to the rest of the news. Let's talk football. As we all know, football is a game. And like all games, football has rules. There are rules on the field, like how many players can be on the field, how many downs each team gets, how many yards for a first down, stuff like that. It'd be no fun if there were no rules on the field. It would be chaos. There are also rules off the field. There are salary caps so that one team can't spend way more money buying up all the good players than another team. There's revenue sharing, so the teams in smaller cities like Green Bay can stay on a level playing field with teams in bigger cities like Dallas. And when one team does really well in one season, they have to go to the bottom of the draft order the next season, while the worst team from the season goes to the top of the draft order the following year. All of these rules are necessary to create a dynamic, competitive game that tens of millions of Americans love. For example, it'd be no fun if the Dallas Cowboys, since they're wealthier than all the other teams, could just buy up all the good players, get all the good draft picks, hoard all the revenue they can collect, and win every single Super Bowl, right? So that's why there are rules. Capitalism is a game, too. And it needs rules, too. Rules ranging from how much money banks need to have on the books, reserve capital requirements, to how much pollution companies can dump in the environment, to what can and cannot be patented or copyrighted. And in Tuesday's State of the Union address, President Obama proposed changes to one of the rules of capitalism, the minimum wage.
A family with 2 kids that earns the minimum wage still lives below the poverty line. That's wrong. Tonight, let's declare that in the wealthiest nation on earth, no one who works full-time should have to live in poverty, and raise the federal minimum wage to $9 an hour. So here's an idea that Governor Romney and I actually agreed on last year. Let's tie the minimum wage to the cost of living so that it finally becomes a wage you can live on.
Just like the rules are needed in football to keep the game competitive, a basic minimum wage is needed in our economy to keep it competitive, too. We need rules so that working people can still be productive members of the economy, so that someone working 40 hours a week is not living in poverty. Unfortunately, Republicans in Congress aren't going along with this. Speaker Boehner responded to the president's call for a minimum wage increase by saying, when you raise the price of employment, guess what happens? You get less of it. At a time when Americans are still asking the question, where are the jobs? Why would we want to make it harder for small employers to hire people? You must also want to make it easier for the Dallas Cowboys to win every single Super Bowl because they're the wealthiest team. So what is it that conservatives just don't understand when it comes to rules in capitalism? Let's ask Austin Peterson, Director of Production at FreedomWorks and editor of thelibertarianrepublic.com. Okay, Austin, what is it that you guys don't get about having just basic rules for capitalism?
Well, no, there should be rules, but the rule should be the rule of law. And the way that economics works is that if you have a minimum wage, what happens is that all the people who are unskilled labor are unable to get jobs. So what you're doing is you're raising the bars on the ladder. You're raising the bars on the ladder, and so people are unable to.
You're asserting something that's not true.
Yes, I am. Well, I'm asserting something that is very true, Tom.
Name which year.
Here's the problem.
Which minimum wage increase caused
Here's what happens. Here's what happens. But here's what happens. If you increase,
just one
please
year.
let me answer your question. If you increase wages, what happens is that employers, in order to pay for it, they increase prices.
No.
So you get inflation, and so it becomes more expensive in order for people to be able to live.
That's number 4
so
on the
every
list.
time that you increase wages,
let me respond to you, please. Okay. There are a number of things that, being an employer for years and years, I can tell you. There are a number of things employers do in response to anything from minimum wage increases to simply your employees coming in and saying, we want a raise. And that you can become more efficient. You can have people work more hours or work better or smarter. You can increase the productivity of the equipment that you're using with people. You can reduce your own profits or your own take-home pay. And ultimately, at the very end of the day, you can increase prices if you want to. And if you look at the studies on the minimum wage, what you find is that American employers, since the 1930s when the minimum wage was first put into effect, have consistently, virtually every single time, have chosen the first 3 long before they raise prices. Because if I raise prices, I'm making myself less competitive with the guy next to me.
But the first minimum wage, Tom's wage laws were made because they wanted to make sure that blacks were not able to compete with white labor. So if you look, remember the 1930s wage laws? Yes, it does, Tom. Yes, it does, because they did not want black workers competing with white labor. Absolutely. You know that it's true. So you know that the minimum wage laws are meant to keep certain people out of jobs. Yes, it is. It's meant to keep people who are unskilled labor from being able to get jobs. jobs. Why don't we raise the minimum wage to $100 an hour, Tom? Why do liberals never answer that question?
You're going from one absurd argument to the second
$1,000 an hour, Tom. Why not?
Let's start out with your argument.
No, it's destroying the economy. This is not capitalism,
Pause
Tom.
for a minute.
You're destroying people's livelihoods. You're destroying the lives of women and children.
Stop for a second.
Bring it on, Tom.
It's not about racism. It is absolutely
not. Yes, it is.
The first guy who proposed minimum wage, you know who it was?
Who was it?
It was President Teddy Roosevelt. This is President of the United States.
The founder of the progressive era.
Republican president.
The most racist movement that we've ever seen in the United States. Woodrow Wilson, who segregated the military, the father of the progressives, father of the modern neocons.
Roosevelt was talking about how minimum wage, he called it a living wage. He said a living wage must be necessary to be able to raise your kids, make it through times of sickness.
Right, and he was an economic idiot just like every other president. Do you know what the real minimum wage is, Tom?
Again,
it's zero. The real minimum wage is zero.
Certainly, as long as you
are destroying jobs. If you want to create jobs, you have got to allow capitalism to work, set stable rules and rules of law.
Capitalism without any trade policies?
Trade policies such as what, Tom?
Of course, you want to get rid of all the trade policies as well. So the minimum wage, again, I defy you to name 1 year. We've had a minimum wage since 1935. 1 year when raising the minimum wage caused unemployment to go up or caused an increase in the people, unskilled laborers who can't find jobs.
Well, I can't answer that question.
No, you can't answer that question because it does not exist.
Well, yeah, because there's lies and statistics.
Every single time the minimum wage has gone up, what happens is people who are minimum wage workers spend 100% of their income. Those are the job creators in our economy.
That's what you want to do.
Those are the job creators in our economy. And if you give more money to people who spend 100% of their income, they buy things.
You're picking winners and
losers.
Yes,
they're picking winners and losers by buying
why
things.
You're picking winners and losers.
They go into stores and say, I'm going to buy this, I'm going to buy this, I like that product.
The minimum wage law is meant to keep minorities down.
This is absolutely.
Yes, it is. You know why?
It has
all the minimum wage does is harm the African American communities because they're the ones who harm the most from these policies, Tom. Women and children are the ones who do this.
You're trying to stop the job creators from being job creators.
No, I'm not, Tom. I'm trying to stop people from harming our
minimum wage workers are the job creators, and you want to keep them from creating more jobs.
What poor person ever gave you a job, Tom?
Every single poor person who ever spent money. Every business that I've ever owned where I was selling products to consumers, and those consumers in many cases were poor people.
This is a Keynesian fallacy, Tom.
This is Adam Smith 101.
No, it's not.
Go back and read Wealth of Nations or Theory of Moral Sentiments, actually.
Well, he wasn't totally perfect as well. There was a lot of
read David Ricardo in 1807 on labor. I mean, he lays it out. This is not
more money does not equal
science.
More paychecks. Not when inflation rises along with the wages, because every time you raise the wages,
minimum wage has never led to inflation. It leads to increases in economic activity.
All right, well, we'll let the viewers decide.
Indeed, we will. Austin Peterson, thank you.
Thank you, Tom.